It's Tuesday, the 21st of May, 2024. These are the science and space headlines we're following on Talkin' Science. The Australian federal budget's boost to the Australian space sector. Blue Origin flies for the first time in almost 2 years with passengers. And gazing into our sun's past with Hubble.
This is Trekzone's Talkin' Science.
Well, hey, this is pretty cool. A NASA statement has pointed to the potential significance of the massive Aurora Borealis and Australis that we saw about 2 weeks ago, noting that they're potentially the biggest since records began over 500 years ago. Scientists are still assessing the information, and we should know for sure soon. Well, the Space Industry Association of Australia has welcomed the 2024 federal budget, handed down just over a week ago by Treasurer Jim Chalmers, noting that satellite communications, Earth observation and ground segment are central to the delivery of the intent and spirit of the programs identified. The announcement to establish Australia's partnership with the United States on the next generation of the Landsat Earth Observation Program, or Landsat Next, comes ahead of the tender process for the spacecraft due later this year. Meanwhile, Geoscience Australia is aiming to map Australia's national groundwater systems and resource endowments, a mission that the space sector will have to play a critical role in. And the prioritisation of Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific will boost our standing in the region as we gear up for the International Astronautical Congress in Sydney next year. The latest wet dress rehearsal for Starship appears to have been a success, with the giant rocket fueled up and ready to fly on its 4th test flight. SpaceX confirming on X that the rehearsal was complete, with supercooled liquid oxygen and methane filled into both stages. With the 3rd flight taking the unwieldy craft to orbit back in March before being unable to re-enter the atmosphere. The 4th is aiming to survive that step, just as each progressive flight has surpassed the last. SpaceX is now ready and waiting on the Federal Aviation Administration to issue its launch license. Blue Origin has wrapped up its first crewed New Shepard mission in almost 2 years after the capsule safely returned to Earth with its 6-person crew inside. Liftoff was executed seemingly to plan, with the propulsion module returning to the launch pad for reuse under rocket power, with one parachute failing to deploy on the capsule on return. Only 2, though, are required to safely slow the capsule down for that all-important touchdown. 90-year-old Ed Dwight was on board. He's a former US Air Force pilot who was selected to be the first black astronaut candidate in 1961 before being unsuccessful in NASA selection despite graduating from the Air Force's Aerospace Research Pilot School. He left the Air Force in '66 and became a sculptor. Non-profit Space for Humanity sponsored his voyage. US researchers have proposed a new possible reason as to why our spicy celestial neighbour Venus lost most of its water. They say a chemical reaction called HCO plus dissociative recombination, a process that would double the loss of water into space as the standard steamy escape methods, could be to blame for Venus's drier nature. That's despite being a close neighbour and being similar in size and source material to Earth, with research suggesting that water from Venus's once steam-dominant atmosphere was lost to space via a mechanism called hydrodynamic outflow. However, this mechanism cannot remove all the water needed to explain current conditions, and other studied escape mechanisms are too slow to complete the process of water removal. So the researchers propose HCO plus dissociative recombination, which produces more escaping hydrogen than previously suggested processes. The reaction would nearly double the rate of water loss to space from Venus and would resolve that long-standing difficulty in explaining measured water abundances and isotope ratios on Venus. The study suggests that future Venus spacecraft missions need to measure HCO plus abundances to determine if the reaction is indeed the dominant mechanism for water loss. Tiny pieces of cosmic dust, not artificial debris, could pose the biggest danger to spacecraft, according to international researchers who analysed material from the Hubble Space Telescope. The team found that natural cosmic dust grains, or micrometeoroids, up to 1/3 of a millimetre in diameter, are responsible for 90% of the largest impacts over the last 15 years, compared to relatively few impacts by artificial debris. These insights could help engineers predict dangers and design spacecrafts able to withstand micrometeoroid impacts as we venture beyond Earth and lunar orbit. A comet fragment has illuminated the Spanish and Portuguese night skies this past weekend. The European Space Agency released video captured by its Fireball camera, describing the comet fragment as stunning before announcing that it likely burnt up on entry into our atmosphere. Preliminary analysis revealed the cometary origin, streaking across the atmosphere for 500 kilometres before burning up at an altitude of around 60 kilometres. That's about 6 times higher than a passenger aircraft. Well, a new image from the Hubble Space Telescope of 10-million-year-old star HP Tau has revealed what the early stages of our star might have looked like. At roughly 550 light years from Earth, HP Tau hasn't kick-started its nuclear fusion process yet and is currently enveloped by thick clouds of dust and gas. Astronomers have noted that the apparent magnitude, or its brightness observed from here on Earth, is in a state of flux, both in terms of duration and frequency, likely a result of its formative years or possibly that gas and dust falling into the corona. Well, Trekzone membership gets you in first releases and first details. With a few tiers and a few options, you can help Australia's only science, space and science fiction podcast pick up the pace in 2024. Although we're up to June, just incredible. Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok and YouTube Shorts all have podcast highlights, so find us where you are. For now, this is Talking Science for the 21st of May, 2024. Thanks for your company.